What piece of junk did you find that turned out to be valuable? Years ago I bought a condo in foreclosure. We couldn't go inside, just look from outside and put in a bid. My bid won. When I went inside the place, it was pretty trashed. I checked all the rooms, calculating the costs of getting it back into shape. At the end of my walkthrough I went into the garage and saw there was a car under a tarp. I pulled the tarp back and saw a 1972 Barracuda in nearly mint condition. I found a small envelope with a few inches of wire in a junk shop. Bought it, $2, because it had some faded penciling about troy ounce, turned out to about 1.5 troy ounces of platinum wire. Sold it for $600. Well, a dickhead couch surfer who crashed in my guest room for a few months left behind a 1970s Fender Super Twin Tube amp worth $1,800 he didn't know about. It made cleaning up his piss bottles worth it. So my family went to a nearby town's vintage sale thing. My dad found this dirty old glass milk bottle, and he got excited when he found it. I didn't know what he found so exciting since it was just a milk bottle. After we got home, he explained that it was a milk bottle from a dairy farm. One of the co-founders of that farm was my great-great-grandfather, on my dad's side. When one of the world wars began, he sold it off to the other founder. TLDR, my dad found a glass milk bottle, and I found out I'm a descendant of wealthy dairy farmers. I was at an estate sale and bought a few paintings. Sweet lady told me to take the last one I liked as package deal since I ran out of cash. Turns out one of them is a pretty rare original print worth about $3,500, and I paid maybe $30 for all 4 prints and paintings I wanted. Someone gave me a hideous purse out of a box on its way to Goodwill. I sold it on eBay for $1,100. I've had some good flips, but that was the best. I found a very small, round piece of metal on the floor in my workplace. I couldn't figure out what the item was and knew I should just discard it, but felt compelled to keep it for some reason. That afternoon my coworker was distraught. The unique type of battery that her cochlear implant needed fell out, and was probably in a dumpster somewhere because the cleaners had come through. I gave her the weird piece of metal in my pocket, and she almost burst into tears from relief. A few years ago, I was looking through the Goodwill website that lets you bid on stuff that you find. I stumbled across one of the Texas Goodwill's pages, and then saw an auction for a huge box of phone accessories that no one was bidding on. I started looking through all the pictures, started researching some of the brands, and started realizing the whole box was worth a decent bid. I took a shot, and made my bid. Someone else saw what I saw, and started a bidding war with me, but I eventually won with a bid of $106, then $24 for shipping. Few days go by, and I finally get the box, well, 2 boxes, and they were both huge. Started taking inventory, and ended with 100 iPhone chargers, 100 Android chargers, about 250 iPhone 8 cases in all different styles, 80 battery packs, a few iPad cases, and about 1,000 screen protectors. Turned my $130 total investment into an eBay business, and made almost $8,000 in about 9 months. Edit, a word. Old folded up piece of paper in the bottom of a box, torn up and faded. Turned out to be a 90-year-old original Giancarlo poster worth roughly $20,000 after spending $1,000 for restoration. Weird painting of a cat with birds on its back no one wanted. Paid $20, worth $400. A really old dollar bill I found in an old Bible. It's worth around $100. Dad carried around a junk guitar for 50 years. Ugly as hell sunburst Gibson acoustic, circa 50s or 60s, can't remember, that he eventually sanded down into something prettier. When I was learning, he took it to be tuned up by our neighbor who owned a shop and was a collector. Dude came back exasperated and told us that my dad had sanded about $50K off the guitar, and that it would have been totally worthless if he hadn't left the logo on. Well, if my mom were to respond to this thread. Original Harry Potter First Edition Philosopher's Stone novel. It's very rare to find and they sell pretty well, but she threw it out. So salty. Bought an old copy of The Wizard of Oz at a flea market for $30. When I got home and researched it more, it turned out to be a first edition. Retro video game consoles/games and electronics. I love them because I love them, but they are often very valuable as well. I used to buy these things way before it was popular. Like buying a full Sega Genesis, Sega CD, 32X, and a ton of games for like $40 back in the day. Nowadays that shit is a gold mine. Saw someone selling a copy of Chrono Trigger for SNES about 20 years ago. It was a great price, and dude said for another $10 he'd throw in a bunch of other games he didn't want, including Star Fox. I was trying to start a collection at the time and figured he'd give me a box of sport games and shit you usually see filling pawn shops etc, but I figured it's $10, so agreed. He gave me the box and thanked me for taking all the crap off his hands. I got in the car and looked through the games, and there was a bunch of bad sports games and a few other meh games, but in amidst it all was this game that said Star Fox Weekend on it. I was like, WTF is that? Check eBay and the thing was selling for like $300 at the time. It's like a rare SNES cartridge they gave out to winners of a competition, or to other people who won one from Nintendo Power etc. I couldn't bring myself to bring it back/tell him. 10 years later I saw some lady on Craigslist looking for a copy of Chrono Trigger for her son for Christmas. I emailed her that I had it, and when she came to grab it I just gave it to her for free to pay back the karma of getting that super rare fame in a $10 box of junk. The thing goes for like $1,000 on eBay now. My friends and I were at a concert and found this broken bracelet under a merch table as we were about to leave the venue. It had an interesting engraving on it, something about being a son and friend. Because it was broken we were thinking about just tossing it, but ended up throwing it in our backpack to bring to the office later. My friend worked at the venue, so she was going to turn it in. The next week I was browsing Reddit on a thread of the same kind of music we were listening to at the show, and just as I was about to fall asleep, someone's post caught my eye. It said something like, "This is a long shot but I lost something," and it piqued my interest, so I clicked it. It was someone from that same show asking if anyone had found a silver bracelet. Turns out it was the same one we found, and it seemed to be a special gift from the person's parent and they were looking for it. We connected and got the bracelet returned to the guy, and the whole interaction is actually in my Reddit history. It's a fun, albeit quick, read. Found a fake Cartier watch in Goodwill for $10. Bought it because it still looked nice. But it's a real Cartier watch and it's worth $1,000 plus. Keeping it because I'd never buy myself something like that. Bought a 1970s Roland TR-66 drum machine, granddaddy to the 808, for $7 at a flea market. All analog and made some cool noises, had a lot of fun with it. Turns out it's worth several $100s or something. It had colorful buttons but cheesy wood grain sides and back. We had it stashed away in the garage for a bit with some shitty thrift store speakers, also wood grain. One day when we cleared out junk my dad tossed it, while, for some unknown reason, keeping the speakers. Needless to say I was a little pissed. Well, easy come easy go. My family Bible. It disappeared for a while. Years ago a sibling of mine passed away. I was helping her children clean out her attic when I stumbled upon a box filled with old books. I was going through them and found one that was tattered and in rough shape. I was about to toss it aside when I decided to open up. Turns out it was the family Bible with a filled out family tree going back to the early 1700s. Quite the find, indeed. It's still in my possession. Would you believe my paternal grandfather was born in 1805? I would not have known that exact date had I not found it. Found some sunglasses in a parking lot covered in dirt. Washed them off and they turned out to be Ray-Bans. It was a pretty good day. My siblings. Turns out organs are actually pretty expensive. Bought a cheap Martin guitar because I was broke and wanted to play. I didn't think much of it at the time, but it's worth a few grand now because it was a limited edition thing. It's still appreciating to the point where I had to insure it. About 22 years ago I found a ring in a parking lot, gave it to the cops for 90 days and nobody asked about it. It turned out to be worth over $1,000. Then last year I found a ring in a parking lot, gave it to the cops for 90 days and nobody asked about. It turned out to be worth $40. I also was digging around in a random old gold mine when I was around 12 and found a pretty decently sized nugget, that was worth $1,800, but I carried it around in my pocket for good luck. Then I lost it. Oh well. I also found a fair few bits of jade in a river, probably a few $100s worth, but I gave them out to friends. And my last decent find was 2 fossilized vertebrae of some sort. Sent them to the aquarium to have them examined. They are about 7 million years old and a dolphin relative. Apparently worthless, but I really like them. They are in my fish tank. When I was a little kid I liked to climb under and hide inside the racks of clothes when my mom was shopping. One time I found what I thought was one of those cheap 25-cent plastic rings that you put a quarter into the machine and it spits out. I think that was basically my only understanding of what a ring was at that age, but I showed my mom what I had found and as it turns out it was a massive diamond engagement ring. I specifically remember that it had tape around it, which my mom explained was probably because it was too big, and whoever was wearing it was trying to make it more snug to their finger. We gave it to the teenager girls who were working the cash register, hoping the person who lost it would return looking for it, and it would get returned. My mom says she kind of regrets doing that because she thinks that the girls probably pawned it and split cash. Probably should have taken it to the police or something, but who knows. I like to think that it did make its way back to the rightful owner. In 2004 my grandfather showed me a locked chest in the storage of his home when I was 15, then he said to me the key is on my cabinet. He promised me to open it when he dies. I kept his promise until he died this January 2020, he died at 101 years old. I got the keys of the locked chest on his cabinet, then opened the chest. When I opened it the things in there were mostly love letters, encyclopedias, maps, records from famous singers, but the valuable thing I found was jewelry and a Rolex and Seiko watch which is under perfect condition. Thank you for watching the video. Welcome to Reddit Wisdom. Here you will learn the wisdom of the crowd, the wisdom of Reddit. Please consider subscribing for more Reddit wisdom.